Hello and good day, pre-algebra. I'm coming to you from La Casa del Schultz, actually from my classroom, but when you hear this, I'll be at La Casa del Schultz. But anyway, we're going to go over PO19 today, talk about those one-step equations with multiplication and division. We are going to correct go over your 18-19 quiz that you took yesterday, and then dive into PO20, which is literally one step up from one-step equations because it's going to be two-step equations. Get it? Okay. Couple of administrative items. First off, I sent an email to your parents yesterday talking about the retake and practice work process. With me being at home, I posted all the practice work from units 1 and 2 on Google Classroom. If you'd like to retake something, go ahead, go into Google Classroom, print it out, complete it, and then send me a picture, email me a picture, then once I approve it, I will email you the retake, okay? When you go in there to print the practice work, do not open it in Google Docs. You know how technology and I do not get along. Google and I have a long-standing feud. When you open those practice work pages in Google Docs, it messes up the format and it makes fractions look funky and everything is just wacko, okay? So print it as a PDF or download it as a PDF. Do not open in Google Docs. Also, Khan Academy is due tonight, but you have literally the entire day to do it until 11:59 p.m. If you would like me to check over math packet number 4 before it's due, leave it in a pile on my desk. Make sure your name is on it. When I come in to record, I will pick it up, bring it home, check it over, bring it back, leave it on my desk for the substitute to hand back to you. And that's kind of how we'll get things back and forth. It's just that kind of like the mail, sort of. Okay. I think that's it. Anything else that pops in my head, I will say, but I think that wraps up that part of it. So you were using opposite operations here, and the goal was to get n by itself, so you could find the value of n by undoing the equation. So if you look at 5n minus 20, 5n means 5 times n, right? The operation that we're doing to n is we're multiplying by 5. So to undo that, we are going to divide both sides by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1n, which is what we want, and 1n equals 20 divided by 5, which is 4. Some of you on your quizzes noted that it's kind of difficult to show work here. I mean, it's not a lot of work to show, but what you're showing me is that you understand the operation in the equation and then what operation undoes that. Showing me that you are dividing both sides by 5, which undoes that multiplying by 5. And if you're sitting there and you're come back to that as, well, yeah, but I can just do it in my head, remember my warning, okay? We will get to equations, perhaps even today, that you're not going to be able to solve mentally. And when those happen, when we come to those types of equations, you need to know the process to solve them. And opposite operations is that process. The next one, negative 11 times n equals 66. The opposite of multiplying by negative 11 is dividing by negative 11, so that's what we'll do to cancel those out of there. Negative 11 divided by negative 11 is positive 1. N is by itself. 66 divided by negative 11 is negative 6. Of course, we would check that. We didn't check the first one. But does negative 11 times our n value, negative 6, equal positive 66? Yes, it does. So we know that we're right. Next one, just another way to show that we are multiplying. Negative 8 times n equals negative 56. Divide both sides by negative 8. Cancel that out of there. Positive 7 is what you should get. Positive 7 is your answer. Negative 8 times 7 is a negative 56. The next row is all about division, right? Whether it's written vertically as a fraction or horizontally, like not a fraction, okay? In both cases here, we're talking about division. That's what's being done in the original equation. So what operation undoes that? Well, we look to PERMDAS, right? PERMDAS, the M and D are on the same level because they're opposites, multiplication, division. So to undo dividing by negative 10, we're going to multiply both sides by negative 10. N is by itself, and 20 times negative 10 is negative 200. We could check that. Does negative 200 divided by negative 10 equal a positive 20? Yes, it does. Next one, written horizontally. And if the whole fraction thing kind of throws you off a little bit, there's no harm in rewriting your equation horizontally so you can see that division symbol. It's more clear. And the opposite of dividing is multiplying, right? Cancel out. 4 times 3 is 12. Does 12 divided by 3 equal 4? Yes, it does. So we know that we're right. Third one, n divided by 8 equals negative 8. I think we did this one together, but maybe not. But we're dividing by 8 in the original equation. So to undo that, we're going to multiply both sides by 8. And negative 8 times 8 is negative 64. That's our value for n. Okay? So 3 examples of multiplication in the original equation. In all 3 of those, the top 3, we divided to get n by itself. The second row was all division in the original equation. And to undo that, we multiplied to get n by itself. Just the whole premise of opposite operations there. Row 3, more of the same, but maybe ones that you can't or not able to do mentally. Again, this is why we have this process. Negative 4 times n, the opposite of multiplying, is division. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 4. And 2 divided by negative 4 is not negative 2. Think about 2 divided by negative 4, fraction form. Negative 1/2 is the answer. If you used a calculator, then you would get negative 0.5. Either answer is fine, but that's your value there. 2 divided by negative 4. The next one, n divided by 12 equals 48. We're going to be multiplying by 12. And 48 times 12 is 576. Tried the quick maths there. Let me go to my trusty calculator just to verify. Yes, 576. So I put these in here. If you put 4, if you put n equals 4, your brain kind of jumped to conclusions a little bit. I put these in here so that you really know and understand the process. Like if you plug in 4 here, does 4 divided by 12 equal 48? No, not even close. So why would your brain think 4? Well, it sees the 48, it sees the divided by 12, and it jumps to 48 divided by 12, which is 4, right? But we're not going to be dividing here. We are multiplying to get n by itself, opposite operation. So watch out for ones like that. I think there's another one too where I do that down here. If you put negative 25 for that one, that got you again. The next one, n divided by 10 equals 1.5. We're dividing by 10. The opposite of that is multiplying by 10. 1.5 times 10 just causes that decimal to move over 1. And so we get 15 as an answer. 15. Last row, 5n equals 175. We're multiplying n by 5. So to undo that, we'll divide by 5. And 175 divided by 5 is 45? That can't be right. I want to embarrass myself. Hold on. 175 divided by 5. 35. Off by 10. That's why we check, right? Okay. N equals 35 there. Next one, negative 12, n equals negative 288. We're multiplying by negative 12 in the equation. So to undo that, opposite operations, divide by negative 12. And negative 228 divided by negative 12 is, as I push all the wrong buttons I possibly can on the calculator, n equals 19, positive 19. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and so positive 19. And the last one, if you, like I said, if you put negative 25, your brain saw the 100, it saw the division, it saw the 4, it automatically just jumped to that calculation. That's not what we're doing here. We are taking n and dividing it by 4. So to undo that, we are going to multiply both sides by 4. And negative 100 times 4 is negative 400, which if you plug that in and check it, negative 400 divided by 4 does equal negative 100. Okay? So opposite operations. opposite operations. The two on the bottom to wrap things up for this page before we get to the quiz and on to PO20. Says you have 189 golf balls and want to pack them in boxes of 21 per box. How many boxes will you need? Okay, so again, this one isn't so much that you have a variable to solve for necessarily, but it's just a contextual example, a real life situation of this one-step equation, where you would divide 189 by 21 to get the number of golf balls that could fit in a box. Or sorry, how many boxes you will need. Okay, you are dividing the total 189 into groups of 21 because you want 21 per box. How many groups of 21 can you make, or how many boxes do you need? The answer there would be 9. You could write it to say, 21 golf balls per box equals my total. How many boxes do I need? 189 divided by 21, that would give you 9 boxes. So that's how you would set it up as an equation with a variable, but you wouldn't necessarily have to. The next one, you receive a large package with 10 small boxes in it. Each small box contains 6 bags of bows. Each bag contains 5 bows. Oh my goodness. How many bows are there in all? So this one might be better drawn as a picture. You don't always have to use an equation to solve math stuff. You could use pictures. It says you got a large package with 10 small boxes in it. So I'm going to divide this into 10 sections here. Okay, so each of those rectangles is one of those 10 small boxes. Each small box contains 6 bags of bows. So I'm just going to take one of these. I'm not going to divide all into 6. That takes too much time. I'm going to take one of them and divide it into 6. Okay, so each of those 6 rectangles represents a bag of bows within that box. And then each bag, so each of those 6 sections contains 5 bows. Right? So I can look at this and I can pretty easily see that there's a total of 30 bows in one of those 10 smaller boxes that's in this large package. So since they're all the same, if this box has 30 bows in it, that means this box has 30, that one's got 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. Basically, I've got 10 boxes, each with 30 bows inside of them. And 10 times 30, there are 300 bows in all. Okay? So, sometimes pictures work better than equations, or if not better, then they work. If you can't think of what the equation might be, a picture will work as well. All right. On to the quiz. Put that aside for now. We'll come over here. This one pretty well, actually. I was pretty impressed with how you folks did with this. I didn't want you to solve an equation for the quiz because then you could do it mentally. I was looking for more, did you understand the process of how to solve this one-step equation? So using the opposite operations method, what would you do to solve 15n equals 45? Well, what's happening in 15n equals 45? We are multiplying n by 15. So to undo that, we would need to divide both sides by 15 to solve for the variable. So the answer for that one was letter D, or the fourth option, right? The opposite operation of what's happening in the original equation. The next one. Using the opposite operations method, what would you do to solve 18 plus n equals 30? Well, we have a positive 18 here, so to cancel out that 18, we're subtracting. Since we're not multiplying 18 by n or dividing 18 by n, we're adding n. It's going to be addition or subtraction that's going to get us canceling out that 18 and n by itself. And to that, we are subtracting 18 from both sides. The next one, using the opposite operations method, what would you do to solve n minus 5 equals negative 10? Look what's happening here. What are we doing to n? We're subtracting 5. So what cancels out a negative 5. What's the opposite of subtracting 5? Adding 5 or positive 5. So add 5 to both sides is how we would solve that. And last but not least, using the opposite operations method, what we do to solve the equation below, n divided by 9 equals 7. We are dividing n by 9 if you want to write it out horizontally. But the opposite of division is multiplication. So we're going to multiply both sides by 9 to get n by itself. And it turns out it equals 63. Okay? So there you have it. Your homework and your quiz, opposite operations with one-step equations. Let's raise the bar here and go down to PO20 and solving two-step equations. And the reason why they're called two-step equations is because there will be two operations going on. Thus, you'll need to do two things to get n by itself. These will all require 2 steps. So the work is going to get a little bit longer just by one step, but we're going to start to leave that realm of equations that you can solve mentally. So knowing this process is going to be critical. It says here, solving an equation with 2 steps is merely building off the last 2 objectives and combining those 2 ideas. It's at this point we move away from fact families. We didn't do that to begin with. And because our equations are more complex, using logic alone is difficult. So we are going to be focusing on this opposite operations method. And the equation we're going to look at first is 5n plus 7 equals 32. Okay? In this equation, we see there are 2 operations. There's addition and there's multiplication. So those are the 2 operations that we're going to have to undo. The opposite of addition is subtraction. And we'll do the work the work below. You'll see the first example here is this same thing. Okay? So to undo adding 7, we know that we're going to be subtracting 7. And then to undo that multiplying by 5, you know that we're going to have to use division. So just like in the last 2 objectives, whatever we're doing in the equation, to solve for the variable, we're going to undo that. Opposite operations. Okay? And the biggest question that folks have for this is, well, which one do I do first? Do I subtract 7 first? Or do I divide by 5 first? Does it really matter? And the answer is yes, it does. Okay? Because we are undoing the equation, we're working backwards. Instead of adding 7, we are going to subtract 7. Instead of multiplying by 5, we're going to divide by 5. We're actually going to be doing the opposite of PERMDAS, meaning that we're going to work through PERMDAS backwards. Right? We're going to work. I just hounded this order of operations. You know, we had a big whole lesson on it, tested on it. Okay? But now we're going to work through PERMDAS backwards, which means we're going to start with addition and subtraction and work our way to the left to solve these equations. Right? Start with the constant. Identify the constant, that number without the variable, and start there. So let's look at and do the work for 5n plus 7 equals 32. Okay? We're going to start with that constant, the number without the variable, and I see I'm adding 7. So I'm going to start by subtracting 7 from both sides. 7 minus 7 is 0. We do that so we can cancel it out. We're left with 5n, and 32 minus 7 is 25. Okay? Now, to get n by itself, we'll be doing the opposite of multiplying by 5, which is dividing by 5. Cancel out, and 25 divided by 5 equals 5. Plug that in to check it. 5 times 5 plus 7. 25 plus 7 does equal 32. So the two steps that we have here, we subtracted 7 because it's the opposite of adding 7. We divided by 5 because it's the opposite of multiplying by 5. Whatever's being done in the equation, you're going to do the opposite, starting with the addition or subtraction, starting with the constant. Okay, so the next one, 2n plus 17 equals 25. We're going to start by subtracting 17, start with that constant. So they cancel out. 17 minus 17 equals 0. We're left with 2n, and 25 minus 17 is 8. Now we are multiplying by 2. So to undo that, we're going to divide by 2. And 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Plug that back in. 2 times 4 plus 17. 8 plus 17 does equal 25. It checks out. Again, I strongly encourage you to plug your answers back in and check them. Like I said before, it's like cheating in math. Checking your answer. You aren't allowed to look up answers in other classes, but here you kind of look it up. You can check, see if you're right by plugging it back in. It doesn't take long to do. Highly recommend that you do it. Okay. The next one, we'll do 2 in the next row as well. Get some division here. N divided by 4 plus 13 equals 15. Again, we're going to start with that constant. We're adding 13. Actually, you know what? Let's do the next one because we haven't done one with subtraction yet. So n divided by 5 minus 20 equals negative 40. So we're going to start by adding 20 now because that's the opposite of subtracting 20. Right? So negative 20 plus 20 cancels out. And n divided by 5, negative 40 plus 20 is negative 20. It's important that you remember your rules for adding and subtracting negative numbers, right? Negative 40 plus 20 is not negative 60. Negative 40 plus 20 is negative 20. Okay? So n divided by 5 equals negative 20. Now we are multiplying by 5 because that's the opposite of dividing by 5. Look at what's being done in the equation here. N divided by 5. The opposite of that is multiplying by 5. To cancel it out. And negative 20 times 5 is negative 100. Okay? Check that. Negative 100 divided by 5 minus 20, or negative 20 minus 20, does equal negative 40. Checks out. Okay? We're going to do one more together here. And let's do the last one, because you always ask for the last one. So we'll do the last one here. In this case, our division and our constant are kind of, switching spots here. Usually that constant, you'll see it comes second in the expression. Here it comes first. 3 plus n divided by 9. We're still going to start with that positive 3 and get rid of it. The opposite of a positive 3 is a negative 3. So we're going to start by subtracting 3 from both sides. Cancel that out. We're left with positive n divided by 9, and 0 minus 3 equals negative 3. Now, in that original equation, in what we have here, we've got n divided by 9. The opposite of that is multiplying by 9. So that's what we're going to do. Second step. Negative 3 times 9 is negative 27. Okay? And that would be our value for n. When I used to be cool and hip, I actually kind of wrote the beginnings of a little jingle for this, for two-step equations. And it goes like this. Start with your constant, move it to the other side. Second step, multiply or divide. Pause for applause. Okay? That's essentially what we did in all of these. We started with our constant and moved it to the other side with addition or subtraction. And then in our second step, we either multiplied or divided to get the variable by itself. So the 4 that I'm going to have you do for homework, don't do the second page yet. Okay? The 4 I'm going to have you do for homework, and these same 4 questions are going to be on your quiz for PO20, so I'm going to kind of check in your homework tonight, both that you did it and that you're doing it correctly, so I can kind of see where to direct my instruction on the second page tomorrow. So these 4 questions, do them on this page, and then you're going to input your answer on the quiz. But in all of them, for example, this 12n minus 5 equals 91, you're going to start with your constants, move it to the other side. Second step, multiply or divide with that coefficient. You just need to decide what operations are you going to be doing, right, to undo what we have in the original equation. So you've got 4 examples here to look at. Hopefully they're helpful. You can head into Google Classroom and complete the quiz whenever you are able. Due tomorrow. That, folks, is How You Math. Have a great day, and of course, do not forget to like and subscribe.